My name is John Rossi, and I am the host and producer of the Rossifari podcast. Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you.
Fans,
I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their
Dani Larson.
Join
Formerly
me on
Dani
my
Courier
Rossifari.
Larson, but as we all know, we have since dropped the Courier.
Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome
my
to
Dani Larson
season
name.
6
I'm the curator
of the
Bird Training
Rossifari
at Southwick Zoo, and I'm
podcast.
joined today
All right,
by
so
my
it has
good
been a long time
friend,
since I've
John
done one of
Rossi
these
of the
reverse
Rossifari
interview
podcast.
episodes.
Hi, John.
And there are a whole lot of
Dani,
you
it's so
who
nice
are
to,
newer
to be
listeners
here
and,
to
newer
be chatting
fans
with
on
you.
the
Thanks for having me
socials.
on.
Season 5 was a
I am so
big period of growth
excited
for the
how
podcast.
the
And so I wanted to
turntables-
take the
this is
time
so
to introduce
unique
myself
and
in a
different, and
formal way.
It feels good
And
to be on
what
this
better
side
way
of
to do
things.
it than to
We have
bring
a lot
on fan
that we wanna
favorite
talk about.
Dani Larson to interview
For
me
everybody who
about the
follows and
Rossifari
listens to the
experience
Rossifari
and
podcast, I
our
cannot be
time
more
together as
proud of
friends
this
and
individual sitting
what
in front
I've
of
gone
me
through
via
over the last
Zoom
5 years. So
that I
yeah,
am
you're going to
right
get to
now.
hear that
John
now.
has
And the good
grown
news is,
his
if you've been
following
following along
and
for a
has
long
done
time, or
such
if you
an
really feel like you know
incredible
who I
job
am,
with
this
this
is still
podcast,
super
with
worth
this
listening
audience.
to, because let's face it,
And
y'all love Dani
John feels like a
probably
brother to
even
me,
more than
and
you
so
love me.
I
And
just
I'm
applaud
okay with
and
that. I'm
celebrate
okay with that.
all of his
And then,
accomplishments,
as
but this one
a
is
special
big.
bonus, after my
He
interview
has
with
gone
Dani,
from
I thought,
20-ish
there's
thousand
one other
followers
person who
since
might
the
have
last time
some
he was
interesting
interviewed for
or
his own
different
podcast,
questions
and
to
now he
ask me
sits comfortably
to get
around
maybe a different perspective.
130 to
And so
50,000
Miles is
on
going
the
to hop
gram.
on, my son,
That's not
and
even including
he's going to ask me a
other
couple of questions
forms of social
from
media.
his
Technically, it's
perspective
Instagram
about
and
just
TikTok
like
combined. Those are
what
the
I
two
do with the
pages.
podcast and
But then
all
the
that
other ones are
jazz.
still
So
there.
yeah, so a
The
couple
ones are
fun
also
things.
there.
Quick reminder: make
Yeah.
sure you hit subscribe
And
so you
it's
don't miss
just,
any
it's
interview
been
episodes
really
or
amazing
Zoo
to
News
watch this.
episodes.
And, like, we
Make sure
are
you're
good
following along
friends.
on
We
the
celebrate
socials
each
at
other's
Rossifari, at
milestones and
Rossifari
victories.
Pod
We
on the
text each
TikTok
other with
machine.
really
And don't forget that you
exciting
can support the
things that
podcast
happen
for
in
as
our
little as
life
$3 a month by going to
professionally, because we're both in this zoo world now, which is
patreon.com/Rossifari.
not a space that
So with
you
all of that
originated
said,
in.
it's time
And
to
I
get
think it's
to
really
it.
cool
So
that you've
yeah,
gotten
let's
here
listen to
and
me.
you
And Dani, I guess.
have genuine relationships with a lot of the people that I've even looked up to for so long in this field. So here we are, and I'm interviewing you today. And the very first question that I have for you, John, in regards to all of that is, what is a bird?
Birds are warm-blooded vertebrates with feathers, hollow bones, and beaks instead of teeth. They lay hard-shelled eggs and have four-chambered hearts. There are around 11,145 known species, and they are found worldwide in every habitat. I may or may not have anticipated your first question.
You knew. You friggin' knew. I saw you were looking over at your computer. You took notes.
I cheated just for that question. I knew you were going to ask me, because before we started, you giggled and said, I already know what my first question is. And I immediately Googled, what is a bird?
Nuh-uh, you did it just now?
Just
Stop it.
as soon as you giggled when you said you knew what your first question was. I know you.
Oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. I'm so mad right now. I'm so mad.
I'm so happy right now.
This is not good for me.
You should probably explain to the audience what is going on in case they haven't heard your first episode.
Okay, everybody. So John first interviewed me in 2020. It was really funny. We did not know each other at all. We were connected through Jake Belair, and you were kind of just like shooting your shot with me. You didn't know me. You didn't know Southwick's. And you were like, hey, this random person, this is cool. So anyway, the very first question that John asks me, I've never been interviewed for a podcast before. I'm a little nervous. I have no idea who this person is. First question he asks me when he finds out I work with birds is, what is a bird? The freaking rudest thing that you can do to somebody who is nervous and who has never done a podcast before is ask them the literal simplest question known to man based on the work that they do. So take notes for everybody who kind of wants a good laugh. And it's just very telling for the type of relationship that has formed between you and I since then. And It's been a running joke. So God damn it. I should have known. I should have known that you'd been prepared. Yeah, you win. Okay. Okay, buddy. You had to Google it. Anyway, you may or may not, actually don't go back and listen to what I actually said in that episode, because boy, was I floundering.
My answer was better. To
Your
be
answer
fair to
was,
those listening, I did specifically ask that because I thought it was like a layup. I was like, here's the easiest thing that I can ask you because I can tell that you're nervous. And so here is, you work with birds all the time. What is a bird?
that is the hardest question that you could have asked me. Like, nobody's ever asked me that before. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's kind of weird when you think about it.
It's so weird. But you know what? Over the years, the way that I have learned is through questions that you get stumped on. And it's just a little bit embarrassing to tell people that I got stumped on that question. And it's not that I didn't know what a bird is. I just didn't know how to summarize it into a sentence. And that made me really upset. And as I was answering, you could like tell that I was just like grasping at straws, trying to answer that question in one sentence. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to move on. I feel defeated. I don't in any way, shape, or form feel happy for you.
See, we normally celebrate each other's victories, but
not this one. Not this one. We can't even call it a victory because your answer was likely AI generated. So not from the heart, John. Okay. So, I want to know, and maybe this has been said in some of your previous episodes, but what has been the number one thing that has drawn you to zoos in general? We know you're a touring drummer. We know that you have spent a lot of time around the country and you had a lot of time on your hands in some of those instances and took advantage of doing things in the area where you were traveling to. So have you always grown up going to zoos? Were you always really interested in zoos? Where were you at before you decided to do this podcast?
Sure. So I really loved animals growing up, and the Maryland Zoo and the National Aquarium in Baltimore were about an hour and a half from where I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And so yeah, I went there. I went there with my folks, and occasionally we would take trips to like Philly and go to the Philly Zoo, or DC and go to the National Zoo and see the pandas and stuff. And then once I started to be able to drive, it became a thing. I know I've told this on here before, but I think it's cute, so whatever. If I started dating someone and it seemed like it was getting serious, I would take them to like the aquarium, because if you can't handle me at my squealing at a sea turtle, or if you're one of those people who's going to be like snarky about animals, it's not going to work. It's just not. But it wasn't until I started touring that I like realized how many zoos there are, and the fact that most cities that are big enough to bring in a national tour of a Broadway show are also big enough to have a zoo or aquarium or two or four. That I combined the two, and a lot of that just came from, depending on what species I'm with, I'm either at my happiest or at my most peaceful when I am with animals. And being on tour, and being on a long tour, my second tour was 11 months, with the same small group of people who, that's a long time with a lot of egos. We're all pretending to be rock stars. I found that rather than going out and getting drunk every night and sitting around and cursing the bad parts of the tour and stuff, which really isn't my vibe, I could get to a town, shoot to the zoo or aquarium that was there, and my heart would like fill up. And then I would go and I would play, which would fill me up. And then I could go to bed early and not worry about all of the negativity. And it became a really good thing for me. And I learned a lot about zoos, but also about myself and kind of like what I look for in people now.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And also zoos, how people act around animals is a really good indication of their character. And so that's a really good date spot. Okay. So we have that established. Now you've been going to zoos, you've been touring, you've been taking photos and growing your Instagram following based on photos. When was it when you decided, I think I could do this podcast thing? And like, what kind of went into really making that happen? When was like your first thought about Rossifari?
So as I was on tour buses in 2018 and 2019, I listened to a lot of podcasts. My first tour, I read books. I had a whole library on the bus and I would loan books out to people and stuff, and it was great. But I realized I was missing the country. I had my face, buried in a book. And so around then was when I discovered podcasts. And so I really wanted to see the country that I was traveling through. And so I started listening to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. And at the same time as I was traveling to these zoos, I had these interactions with zookeepers all the time because I would constantly talk to aquarists or to zookeepers and be like, what's your turtle's name? What's your red panda's name? Whatever. And man, y'all like to talk about your animals. Don't know if you know that or not. And it was really funny
it's our
because
job.
I know. Well, and sometimes I would come up to people who clearly did not want to interact with a human being. But
Yeah.
when instead of asking where the bathroom was or saying, oh, this must be the zookeeper exhibit,
Oh,
I would actually just
classic.
take an interest and be like, yo, hey, that red panda is gorgeous. Boy or girl, what's its name? Whatever.
Mhm.
All of a sudden you would see the excitement. And then I couldn't get them to shut up. And I remember thinking, oh, there must be a podcast like this. And where you could talk to these people, and there wasn't. And a couple zoos had small podcasts that did or didn't have much success, and there were a few things that were starting around the time, but nothing like what I was picturing, hearing zookeepers talk about their lives and their animals. And I thought, oh my God, that would be so fun to start that. I know nothing about podcasts. I am on a bus. I can do nothing. And then March of 2020 hit, and that was COVID. And the interesting thing, we all have our COVID stories, and we all went through a lot of crap during the initial lockdowns and stuff. Mine, to me, tops a lot of them, except for the people who lost people to COVID, because I had booked the busiest year of my career. And it was booked out. Normally we book a couple months in advance and then you talk to some people, but I am literally always, looking for work. I'm booked now through November. We're recording this at the start of July, and most of my friends are envious of me that my career is booked that far ahead. And that's just how the industry works. But I had booked a full year out, and literally in 1 week, it all went away. It was in that first week, and theaters just canceled, even months out. And I was at home. I was completely alone at home. There was no human or animal there at the time. So he was off doing vet stuff and had dogs and such. And it was not good for the old mental health.
Yeah.
And I very much realized that if I didn't do something, I was going to lose my mind. And so I remembered that podcast. And I had built a following of about 3,000 people at the time on Instagram with my zoo pictures. And some of them were keepers who had seen me post their animals and connected with me. And we had little chats and stuff. And I reached out to some of them and I was like, hey, would this be a thing that you'd be interested in doing if you were allowed? Obviously, I know zoos, PR people, whatever, we'll figure it out. And everyone was like, yes, this would be awesome. And I was like, cool. And I had a bunch of recording gear up in my drum room. And so I had everything I needed to start except for small mic stands. That was the only thing I had to buy. So I bought two $5 mini mic stands on Amazon and started, literally just Googled, how do you start a podcast? And, found my hosting companies and found how Zoom works. Because at the time I hadn't even really Zoomed and found all that
I
stuff.
feel like a lot of people hadn't until
No,
COVID. Zoom became a thing.
Yeah,
COVID,
I mean, there was another company that people use for this stuff. I'm blanking on the name right now, but I actually just read that it just shut down because Zoom swept in. Skype, thank you. Yes, I couldn't think of that. Yeah, Skype just shut down. I was like, oh, I've Skyped before, but what's this Zoom thing? And
it's the way we do this stuff now.
Yeah. But yeah, and I was able to find some people who were my first kind of early guests, and they were all zoo adjacent. But then my first actual episode was Jake Belair because Nashville was willing to give me a shot. And from having Nashville on, I got Atlanta on, and from having two AZA accredited facilities, I got a lot more. And Jake recommended a lot of people who were willing to trust his recommendation, including you. And all of a sudden we were in it. I figured if Rossifari lasted 6 weeks, it would be a miracle. And I'm going to release this as the start of my 6th season. So we have gone for 5 years, and I have not taken a week off. So,
yeah, well, it's because you have the passion, not just for this, kind of micro business that you have grown, but also for zoos in general. And you're really good at curating these relationships with these people who are the heart of zoos. And it's like, you literally are the type, you've talked about this before and we've talked about it, but you are the type of zoo guest that we hope to reach and that we want coming to the zoos, because, not only putting out content, they're highlighting what the zoos are doing and what all the great stuff that we're doing, but you're just absorbing it and you're excited. And that is exactly like, we obviously want people that are maybe not as thrilled and come to the zoo and leave a lot more thrilled. But it's also really exciting when we have somebody who comes along who shares that passion, but is not a part of zoo worlds. And I think that's been really unique about your success. So when you were first deciding, did you reach out to some of those facilities to see if they could put you in touch with keepers who would talk to you? Or did you reach out to Jake? No.
I reached out to Jake, and I reached out to some other people, all who said yes, and none of whom then did the podcast. One eventually did like a year later. Just
did
as
you
things
meet
happen.
Jake before? Had you met Jake before?
We had met online. It's a long time ago now. I mean, we're talking over 5 years. But I believe I connected with Jake because of following him because of Wilbur and Willow the Bintronicks.
Yes.
And obviously, yeah, I mean, Jake's also just the type where if he sees a good picture from his zoo, he's just going to comment on it and be like, "Hey, yeah. I'm Jake. I'm cool." And
he's so great at connecting with
so
people.
Good. Yeah, so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that my podcast I don't know that this would have worked if not for Jake. And it's funny because Jake and I are buds. I like Jake. We're good. We chat every once in a blue moon, but Jake and I don't have the connection that you and I have, that so many other people that I've connected with through this podcast have. Love him to death. Would literally, he lives in Pittsburgh now, and it's 3 hours away. I would drive down there to help him in an emergency if he needed, but it's not that same thing. And it's so funny because at the same time, I don't know that any of this would be here if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, well, Jake is really, really good at seeing something or somebody really great and giving them the encouragement or the boost that they need to just keep going. I don't know. He sees greatness, and he is so great that you feel honored that he's giving you this kind of leg up, or oh my gosh, cool, this is cool. We have this relationship. And he just I think, blasted out your name to all these people, and it was awesome.
Yeah. And I had no idea. I didn't know who Jake Belair was. I knew that he had 2 Binturongs that I liked.
So that was the perfect person to connect. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it would have if Bob Jones, who has 3 friends, also happened to have 2 Binturongs, I might have tried to connect with Bob Jones and nothing would have happened.
Yeah.
Literally was just kismet. And like you said, he clearly saw something, or maybe just wanted me to stop bothering him, because he blasted it, and it's made a huge difference.
Yeah. No, he saw greatness. And I couldn't be more grateful because he dropped my name to you. And that's how we are here right now.
And that's how everyone found out what birds are.
Exactly. If it weren't for Jake Belair, nobody would know. Which is true for so many things. Okay. So, you kind of got these connections. You had some of these people that you knew of who kind of followed you. You started this podcast. You have a unique skill other than just being in the music industry. You're really good with this tech stuff. We've talked about it. We've talked about how it could potentially be another way that you offer up your quote unquote services, because you have a lot of skill when it comes to, this presentation style, but incorporating it with technology. Even you've given us small tips on how we wear our microphones in our shows and how we should be wearing mic tape and all of this. So you had this skill, and you kind of had all this technology kind of ready to go. Like you said, you just needed to buy the mic stands. what else went into giving Rossifari that kind of finesse that I believe it has always had and that you've maintained and continued to build off of? But like from the beginning, Rossifari had like an attractive jingle, and it had the poop story, and it had just like all of these things that make Rossifari what it is. You have these traditions, you have these trends, but you also have the quality to put out this content because you have the knowledge about the technologies. It's a little bit of a loaded question, but like, how did you start with that? How did you build on it? And how do you feel like you've kind of maintained it over the past 5 years?
So as far as the quality and like the tech side of things, yeah, I learned how to record stuff for drums and stuff. But one thing about me is that if I get something really in my head, and I mean I have to get it like really in my head. I'm not just talking about like an average thing. I will figure out how to make it happen come hell or high water. And I think the best example of that is when I came up with the idea for Zoo News.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Taylor and I do some of that music together, but a lot of it is just me, and I don't play those instruments. And
Mm-hmm.
I literally spent one whole day just sitting at my house, figuring out how to find samples in Logic, which is the app that I use to like record and edit and everything. And then how to cut them up to make them into different parts. So I wasn't just stealing pre-recorded stuff, even though it was
Mm-hmm.
like legal to. And I wrote those songs and pulled parts from different beats and different guitar pre-records and stuff. And I did all of that on my own. And I've never done it again. That was 4.5 years ago or whatever. I started Zoo News a couple months in.
Right.
And so I couldn't tell you how to do it now. If I had to do it tomorrow, I'm sure I'd vaguely remember, but I'd have to go back and re-Google everything and stuff. But I spent a whole day of my life just sitting there coming up with the music beds, then coming up with the lyrics and how to make them funny and all that stuff, and recording it and making it happen. And in one day, I created all of that stuff, all of the the early Zoo News stuff and the intro to Zoo News and all that stuff. And then other times there were just good things. One of the things I was doing because COVID again just was a bear as a musician was I missed playing with people. And I reached out to my buddy Nate, who is this incredible guitarist. He played Carl Perkins on the $1 Million Quartet tour. And I was like, hey man, you got any original music that you want to collaborate on? And he was like, yeah, I'll send you a track. I'm doing stuff with it with my band, but like, I'd be curious to hear what you got. I was like, yeah, it's just a jam. This is nothing. And so he sent me what is now the Rossifari theme. And I'll never forget because my idea was I was going to record drums and send it back to him. And I didn't listen to it. I just went to the drum kit and I set up and I hit record, and it was my first time listening to it. And that is the final product. And especially if you listen to the end of the podcast, I'm still not sure how I pulled that off. It might be the single greatest first take I've ever done as a drummer for anything ever. It's insane. And anyone who knows drumming, it's especially insane. It's in a weird time signature. It's got weird changes, all kinds of stuff. And the ending, I just go off and it all lined up perfectly. And I hit that last cymbal hit and I heard him stop the guitar. And I was like, holy crap, I cannot wait to send this to him. But that's all it was. And then I decided to launch a podcast and I was like, I need a theme song. Oh, hey, Nate, am I cool to use this thing that we recorded together? And so he threw some bass on it. And he was like, you sure you don't want to like redo it or like get a better? And I was like, it's awesome. And I mixed it, and that's the theme song. And it's pretty great. And you know,
so
now he's heard that. Now he's had one of his pieces of music heard by, over 1 million times. It's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Well, I think in general too, just like, I think part of the success of all of this is musicians have this like level of finesse to their work that like is not always achievable for like your average person. Like, and this is a very John thing, but when you go to set out to do something, like you said, you're going to figure out how to do it. But not just that, you're going to like make it the best you can possibly make it in that, like, not one take, but like you're going to create that one take that day. Or once you create that thing, it's not going to be something that you have to keep making better and better and better and better. Like you said, you created that and it's been the jingle for 4.5 years now, and you don't have to retouch it because it's great. So I think that also, like I was saying before, with the podcast and the themes and everything had just been so great from the beginning. So now you kind of just get to keep going. And in some ways you've made things a lot better and made improvements, but in other ways, I think it's just been really good from the start. And I just think that but in addition, musicians have this level of like just being able to do something really well, really quickly. And it's a skill. It's definitely a skill. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's been nice.
Okay, so my next question is, you have a big following on social media and it's growing, and social media is a challenging space to be in, but also it's now impacted your livelihood because you are able to profit off of it in some way. And it's very consuming in some way. And this is part of your job now. And it's something that you do for fun, but it's also something that you can, like I said, profit from. Do you find it ever consuming in an unhealthy way? Not even just the social media aspect of it, but even putting out the podcast. And like, do you go back and listen to those episodes and like ever find yourself like critiquing yourself or like any of that? Or do you consume this content in the same way that you release it? Or have you set pretty strict boundaries about how you interact with your own content?
Great question. So I'm going to answer differently about the podcast and about social media.
Okay.
The podcast is amazing. And I can genuinely say that I love it. It is my guests that make it amazing in my mind. And I don't go back and listen to like Zoo News because like that's just me talking and I know what I said. But yeah, I go back and listen to episodes sometimes, and I always have to edit anyway. Every episode that comes out, I've listened to at least once. And I freaking love it. And I sometimes think that the reason I haven't taken a break is because I love it. I don't want Rossifari to take a break. I feel like the time that I eventually am like, this is more work than fun. Not even fun. It's a lot of work, but it's fulfilling. That's when I'll take a break. I don't think I'll ever stop, but it's when we'll take a season break. But no, I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. And people like you who inspire me, I can go back and listen if I'm frustrated about something that's happening in my life, or especially in the zoo world that I occupy now, and hear the good people, the exciting people, and damn, it's nice. It's really nice.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that Rossifari exists just as a fan, honestly. Social media is a very different story. I feel so pressured to make content. I've been slowly learning to let this go. For the first probably 4 years of my Instagram, I didn't miss posting on a single day except for the day of my grandmother's funeral. And I felt bad about it the next day. And I was like, well, that's effed up. I shouldn't feel bad about that. And so now I try to post 5 to 7 times a week. So still almost every day, but I don't really care if I don't. I usually take Sundays off from posting now, not because I care about Sundays, but I know I'm going to do Red Panda Monday. I'm on Monday. And so I know people will be back for that. Because the interesting thing about it is I don't face a lot of the standard problems with social media. I don't feel too much pressure from when I see other podcasts posting stuff or anything. Most things are so different from Rossifari. There isn't really a true competitor for what I do. And so I don't feel a lot of that stuff that I can feel in personal social media stuff. As you know, I've struggled with my weight and body dysmorphia and all kinds of that stuff. And sometimes when I post videos, me drumming with Emily or something, people will comment on that, and that can be hard on me. But compared to most people that struggle with that stuff on social media, I'm pretty lucky because I'm posting cute animals. And there is the anti-zoo crowd, but I've learned to, after my first video drumming with Emily blew up, I had to learn how to handle those when I'm in a good mental place.
Hmm.
But also it's something that I believe in, and it's not me directly. If someone's attacking a zoo, that's different than calling me a tub of lard. You know what I mean? And so it's easier for me to go and defend a friend than it is to feel like I'm being attacked.
Defend yourself.
But
Yeah.
I do feel not only a real pressure to do it. I don't really care. Rossifari does not make a ton of money. I do not. This is very much a full-time workload for a very, very part-time job payment. Some months are
Hmm.
better than others with the social media and stuff. Um, but um, I I feel like what I do is important, and I feel like the podcast is important, and I feel like spreading the word about what animals are cool and what good zoos are and what good aquariums are and all that is super important. And the algorithm rewards posting daily, often, whatever. So I literally start to get this pressure. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm not going to make money if I don't post the red panda today. It's that the algorithm will stop people seeing the important stuff that I'm trying to share and the important message from other important people and places that I'm trying to share if I don't
Hmm.
post regularly. Um, and that's a weird sort of pressure, but I have
Hmm.
slowly been learning to let that go. The benefit
Hmm.
of it is I spend so much time on the Rossifari socials. I have no desire to interact with my personal social media, which I think a lot of people have a lot of problems because of their personal social media.
Hmm.
Um, and I get to avoid a lot of that. I post on Facebook maybe 6 times a year, and that's a heavy year for me. And I
Hmm.
can't even remember the last time I logged into the Rossi Drums Instagram. I'm sure it's still there,
Hmm.
but so I don't need to go and compare myself to other drummers on Instagram, and I don't need. I remember one time years ago, before I started all of this, I was on tour with Million Dollar Quartet and the national tour. I was the music supervisor as well as drummer of the national tour of Million Dollar Quartet. And some kid had booked the same role in a regional production at a small theater that I know pays like $400 a week. They couldn't afford me anyway, even if I was sitting at home. And I got so jealous. And I literally was on a tour bus. I was on a sleeper bus. I was in a bunk on a tour, and I got so jealous. And I was like, I can't believe that SOB got that gig. I never even heard from. Okay, wait. Luckily, I kind of realized, but I was like, this is what social media does. And so now the other thing that I like is that I try to be a force of positivity on social media. And sometimes I fail.
Hmm.
Sometimes people put up dumb comments and I can't help myself. Again, if I feel like you're attacking a zoo or a zookeeper that I love or something, I'm gonna, but I,
Right.
I try to be, and even that to me is being a force of positivity. It's just, but most of what I do, hopefully, if seeing a dude drum with an elephant can make you smile, then good. That's maybe one less negative thing that you've seen on social media that day. And that's cool.
Right. What is something that you've learned to do if you do have those moments where you get frustrated? Like, do you have like something that you practice? Like, I personally find it really hard to separate myself from things that I see that I find frustrating. And it takes me a while to come down from those endorphins that get released. And have you figured out how to pull yourself out of it in some way?
Eat ice cream? That's not a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
No, in all
Part of my,
seriousness,
it's what I do too.
it really depends. It depends on where I'm at in my life. If I can get to a zoo or an aquarium, or if I have an interview scheduled, or if I can connect with Miles, or go out on a date night with Zoe, or have a fun text chat with you or something,
Mm-hmm.
I can it just goes away. But if
Mm-hmm.
I can't, and especially if I'm on a gig or like I'm sitting in my house alone, um, yeah, sometimes it's harder than other times. I'm still working on it. I'm still figuring out the full social media thing.
Yeah.
And it's tough. Even not. I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. And the more as cute as animals are, the more you put yourself out there, the more the algorithm cares. But I have all kinds of feelings about myself sometimes, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's tough. And I'm like, wow, do I post a really cute photo of a sloth with me in the background? but my shirt looks tight and I feel bad about myself
Hmm.
and I can go through that thought process for a month. So, I'm working
Yeah.
on it. But I do find that connection in the real world does help when I can make it happen.
Well, speaking of Miles and Zoe, what do they think? What has their kind of thoughts been? How are they feeling about you being on this kind of Rossifari journey? I know that they're very supportive. Zoe is our fact checker. Miles gets excited to hear about some of the animals, and you guys have bonded over a lot of these things. And obviously, your role as a dad is really important to you. So, how does Rossifari blend into your family life?
Very well. I mean, Zoe obviously is a vet and loves animals and is the relief vet at Aquarium of Niagara right now and wants to be a full-time zoo aquarium vet. And I've had
Mhm.
all these amazing moments where I've gotten to introduce her to vets that I've gotten to know. And a lot of times when I interview vets, especially some of the really big ones at big facilities, I ask them, and they will literally record advice for Zoe. And then I just give her that recording and she gets her own private MP3 of like, so John tells me this is where you are and this is where you want to get and this is what I would do and this is what I wouldn't do. And they're always encouraging and they're awesome and they're lovely. And, there have been jobs that she's applied for and gotten into. I mean, even being at Aquarium of Niagara came through me. And so
Mhm.
Rossifari has actually helped with some of that stuff. And
Mhm.
that's very special. One, it's not like it can get her a job as a vet, but it might help her get in the door. And then
Yeah.
once everyone meets her, it's game over. They love her.
Mhm.
Um, so that's been really cool. Um, the flip of that is, I will say, sometimes there's been a little bit of jealousy. I get to do a lot of cool things, and
Mhm.
she wants to do some of those cool things. And so, if I'm being completely honest, there have been the occasional, moments of that. But I've learned that all I need to do is tell people who she is, and she can come and do all this stuff. At first, I was really
Yeah.
nervous about that, and I wouldn't like. I was like, "Oh, you can't come. I don't know. I get to go do cool stuff, but I don't want to ask for someone else." And I'm like, "Hey, can this amazing, awesome vet come and do the things?" And so, yeah. So I think getting to play with, the red panda cubs and meet bintlets and stuff like that has definitely eased some of that off, which is nice. Because
Yeah.
I get it. I've actually had just fans tell me that they occasionally need to take a small break because they get jealous. And then they come back and re-listen and catch up on everything. But I've even had zookeepers who are like, literally like, dude, you've met so many more species than I will ever meet in my career. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. You're right. There are literally weeks where I'm hanging out with an elephant and a red panda and a bunch of different birds. And like, I'm like, what is my life? And like, sea turtles and all. And I'm like, yeah, you could go a whole career without doing what I do in a week sometimes. And it's very
Mhm.
special. Um, but that was the only time that there was ever anything that I would say wasn't a 10 out of 10 about it as far as her and
Mhm.
I are concerned. And now that I've learned, like, man, when I got to go out and do all that cool stuff at Tanganyika and everything, they were like, please bring her. And it was very exciting. We have a lot of fun. So that's very cool. And Miles has
Mhm.
gotten to do some cool things. He's met a sea lion. He's met a red panda. And, it really makes him love animals and have a good heart for conservation. He really cares about that stuff. I have seen him talk to people at zoos. You can't have a red panda as a pet, something like that. He does a lot of reports on animals. He's also forging his own way right now. He really loves koalas, which I think is very cool. He was like, "I'm sorry, it's not a red panda, but I really love koalas," and I was like, "Heck yeah, do your own thing." But the funniest thing about it with Miles is that he's 10, he's almost 11, and he thinks I'm famous. And I don't support that. I laugh whenever he says that because I'm
Mhm.
not. But in this weird niche way and in this niche world, I am, I guess. Like, I mean, what do you call 130 followers, 30,000 followers? Like it's a
Yeah.
lot of people. And 1 million downloads is, and yeah, that's nothing. I'm sure Office Ladies gets 1 million plus a week, whatever. But like, it's that weird thing where like, yeah, I'm a no name, and like, oh yeah, this zoo's flying me out, or oh yeah, I've been asked to go to this place to do that, and that to a kid, that's mind blowing. And it's
Yeah.
really funny. Like, he will just tell his friends very matter of factly. He's like, "Oh yeah, my dad's famous." I'm like, let's pump the brakes on that one. But on the other hand, I talk to him and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm going out to Colorado, play the drums this week, and then I'll be in Phoenix for a week for the podcast. They asked me to come back, and then I'm going out to, play the drums in Florida, and then I'm going to go up and I'm going on a little tour of the Northeast, and oh, you can come see this show, and then I'll be in Massachusetts, and it's like, I mean, yeah, to a 10, 11-year-old boy, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. I also just think there's something massive to be said for the fact that it's so important for our kids to see us doing things that we love and being passionate about it and being really good at it. And so, regardless of how many followers you have and how quote unquote famous you are famous in his eyes for all of that, because he just gets to see you do this thing that you love and that you're really good at. And he is learning and he's admiring you. He's becoming his own little conservationist. Like you said, I will not forget the time at your wedding that he gave Raina some lettuce because hers was eaten pretty quickly by the giraffes. And he just had some left and he said, "Here you go, you can have this." And I wanted to cry. I thought it was the sweetest thing. I mean, Raina was like, I don't know what, 10 months old or something at the time. Like, she didn't even really know what was going on. But I think that just like speaks to the type of kid that Miles is. He just wanted her to have this cute little experience. It was so precious.
Yeah, he has the biggest
John
heart.
Rossi's kid. But yeah,
That's the other thing that I love about it too, is that his mom has a very traditional life in a very great way. She's got two daughters with her new husband, and they all live together. And his stepdad, or bonus dad, as we like to say, works computer job, and they have like the traditional 9 to 5, go to church on Sunday life. And then I'm like, I don't know what state I'm in this week, but I'm having fun. Woo! You can find me on Spotify. And like, it's just, I like that he gets to see both sides of that,
Yes, he
because
gets
I
the
think
best
that
of both
one,
worlds.
yeah, I think that like I know that for me, like my family, my parents, very successful, but like very traditional family. And like growing up, I knew that you could like kind of do alternative things, but I didn't really know how, or what, how you make that happen. I had to find my own path, and like he gets to see best of both worlds and very happy people in both worlds, which I think is a really beautiful thing.
Yes, massively important. And I think it's fantastic. So what has been your proudest moment of Rossifari so far?
I debate that all the time. There are some that are really cool. There are a lot that are really cool. A lot of them are very private things. I don't think I can pick one. A few people who have entered the industry did so because of Rossifari. And that, wow, not just for changing their lives, but for all of the animals that they're going to touch and all of that impact, and we've raised thousands for conservation and stuff. The whole Safe Red Panda thing has been a lot. Getting asked to join a conservation organization and then to be on the leadership team of it. I really put like, I'm a conservationist now. We do the thing, and I lead these meetings sometimes, and I'm like the only one who's never been in a real meeting before. And it's really funny. And I've kind of had to learn a little bit about like protocol, because production meetings are the closest I get to that, and they're very different. People are like, "Hey, let's meet in Teams," and I'm like, "What's Teams?" I don't know that word. Okay. But yeah, there are just these little moments that always stand out to me. People who told me that they were at a bad facility and they wanted to get out, and they heard interviews that gave them the strength to, and then heard interviews of places where they were like, oh, that place sounds cool, and they applied and they got jobs like that.
Mhm.
Those have always been really cool. Just people, I've literally had people who just thank me because they're having a crap day and I post a red panda picture and it fixes their whole week. And like all of those moments are, I mean, that's why I do this. I don't do this for the very small amount of money that I clearly blow on hotels anyway when I'm traveling to do this stuff that I make from the podcast. Um,
And unfortunately, all of your friends don't have guest houses or even spare
yeah,
rooms.
I know. It's crazy. Stop
One of
having
these
children.
days.
But
One of these days.
one of these days. But I don't I can't pick one. It's just the
Hmm.
whole ride is amazing. Um it's I yeah, I can't even when I start to think about all the things that have happened. And it's not just like I know you're talking about proud moments, but also moving away from that, just the experiences. You know,
Hmm.
I remember Zoe and I trying to figure out, she was still in vet school. We did not have a lot of money. If we could afford pay to go and meet red pandas because I wanted to meet a red panda because I'd never met a red panda. I've now met like 54 red pandas. I've held multiple panda cubs. I played drums with an elephant. I know I bring that up, but like I was rewatching, I actually just reposted the first video from that ever. Just as occasionally repost things on social media. And I was watching my own face in it. And I got as emotional watching how emotional I was then as I was then. And like, I'm friends with an elephant. Like the last time I went and visited Emily, it was pouring out. We couldn't drum, but she instantly recognized me, came over, held my hand. It wasn't for the podcast. We didn't take any pictures. I was just hanging out with my friend Emily. I got to befriend an octopus until it went into senescence and everything.
Hmm.
Um, all of the stuff I've done training sea lions and all of that, like it's all just mind blowing to me. The experiences and the friendships. I mean, literally when Zoe and I got married, as you know, we kept it a very small wedding.
Hmm.
But initially we had talked about, well, would it be larger or whatever? And the number of theater friends and musician friends that I even thought about was so small. It was all going to be zoo people. And that's
Hmm.
insane. Obviously our friendship has
Hmm.
like lifelong huge impacts all the time. And I think one of the funniest memories I have that sums up just what it's been like for me so much is Zoe and I were at some zoo, shockingly somewhere, and we saw wombats, and I was like, oh my god, wombats, we need to meet wombats, it would be cool to meet wombats. And she goes, it really would. And we walked a little bit further. And then I went, wait, didn't we feed wombats at the Toronto Zoo? And she's like, oh my God, we did. And it's like, we've just
You
met so
were
many cool
not.
animals. We literally
You
forgot just for
forgot.
a little bit,
Oh
just for a
my
little bit.
God.
But I know it's insane. And it's just like who every time I'm like, nothing will ever top this experience. Then like a week later, something happens. I'm like, holy
Something.
crap, this is at least as good, you
Yep.
know? So yeah, it's been really special.
So you've had a lot of really great guests over the years, and some guests that you like have heard kind of from the beginning through the grapevine, kind of worshiping the grounds that these people walk on. Like they're just incredible guests. Like you got to have an interview with Steve Martin, and you got to walk around his facility, and he went and showed you the tortoises, and all these like really fun, really cool memories. What is a guest that you haven't had on your podcast yet that you want on your podcast real bad? Um, who is it?
They're not
Who's your
famous
most
names. They're
okay?
not famous names, but the Smithsonian National Zoo and
Mm-hmm.
Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute are two
Mm-hmm.
places that I have wanted to get into for a long time. And by the time this episode drops, I will have done interviews there. Just
Woo!
finalized things today, actually, as we're
Oh
doing
my
this
God,
interview. And it's
so
been in the works
exciting.
for over a year because with all the panda stuff that happened, it kept getting shelved. And that's fine. That's cool. They're great. They're awesome
Mm-hmm.
team there. Um, I don't know. I know kind of who I'm talking to. There's one maybe, but there are two people, one at the zoo and one at the SCBI, that I really want to interview. Mariel Lally is a giant panda keeper. And I've known her for a while now through Instagram, and she's one of the people who decided to exit social media for her mental health, which I respect, and made sure like I had her number and stuff, and we've like met up at the zoo a couple times. Um, got to go to China to meet the pandas over there before bringing them back and everything.
Wow.
Very cool human, very cool story. And I just adore her as a human. I know she's not going to be available when I'm down at the zoo that day, and so I'm not going to get that this time. But we've already talked about next time, hopefully, you know.
Hmm.
But I've wanted to have her on for ever. I've wanted to have a panda keeper from the Smithsonian Zoo on forever because one of my big things was going to the National Zoo and seeing the pandas there. My first
Hmm.
ever stuffed animal when I was born was a panda that I named Panda. It was a puppet. I still have it to this day. And so I've always loved giant pandas as much as I like to pick on them because they're not red pandas. And so, yeah, and then once I actually got to know her and met her a little bit, I was like, oh, we're just friends. And you know, when you're friends, the interviews are always better and more fun. So yeah, she's number one.
Hmm.
And then number two is Jessica Cordell, who is the stud bookkeeper for the Red Panda SSP and who works at the SCBI. So she works with carnivores. She works with red pandas and I think maned wolves and just another person who I've gotten to know who is very special and who I want to share their story with the world. And the cool thing about that is that when I'm at the SCBI next week, we are going to hang out. I don't know if an interview is going to happen or not. It was kind of up in the air based on other things. Nothing, again, you know, the Smithsonian's been incredible. They
Hmm.
gave me so many story opportunities. I'm sure I will be back after this visit. But that has been the facility that I've wanted to have on and kind of had like, oh, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I grew up loving it and those are the two people that I want to have on. And either, you know, they're not famous, but also with few exceptions, and Steve Martin was definitely one of them. Some of my least listened to episodes are the name guests,
Hmm.
which I find really interesting.
Yeah, it is
And I
interesting.
don't know why that is.
Well, I
Um,
almost feel like it might be because it's exciting. Like being on a podcast is exciting. Like when I was on your episode the very first time, I think I shared it, but then a lot of people shared it because they were like, oh my God, Dani was interviewed on a podcast. That's so cool. And so they listen to it, they share it. And then like, I don't know, my mom was like sharing it with people. Like, you know, it's the people that don't do these things regularly that the community is really excited for. And I think it spreads that way. The big names do this kind of PR stuff all the time. So like it's not really exciting. Um, yeah, when you're in the field, you like it and you might listen to the big names because you know them and that's cool. And you might learn something, learn a lot. But yeah, I think it's just that sharing with that person's community that they get excited for that individual. And so that's why you get more listens on those episodes. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's
it
what it
seems
was for
likely.
me.
It makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but I was amazed because the first time I got some even just like minor names on there, I was like, here we go, baby. And then the
Yeah.
numbers came in, and I was like, oh, okay, you know,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like one of my most listened to episodes is Caitlin Bach from the from Pasa, and like who from what?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but it's pretty amazing that yeah, no, but yeah,
Good and good for her, man. That's so
yeah, it's
exciting.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah. I love that. I love that. How much longer do you want me to go? You'll
I don't
obviously
know.
edit
I
this
just
part
like
out,
talking to you.
but
I'm just hanging out with my friend Danny. I don't know.
I know. Well, I'm starting to get to the point where I need a snack, but I also need to go grocery shopping, so I don't really know what I have.
I'm gonna say it's
Would it
pretty
be
late
weird
for
if
grocery shopping.
would it be weird if I ate an orange during the interview?
You've eaten on interviews before.
Please hold while I go get a mini orange out
Yeah,
of my fridge.
yeah, go for it.
Can you still hear me pretty well, by the way?
I can. Yeah.
Because my
Just
left
like
ear
you could
pod
hear me
died.
singing Blue Suede Shoes when you got back on and I was walking around my house.
Yeah, because my left AirPod died.
Oh, good. You're so good at taking care of things and tech
Well, I
and
literally
stuff.
charged it right before this. I think they're just like on their way out because they're a million years old.
That's fair.
Okay. Let's think about this. We all know the animals that you like. We all know because we hear about them enough. What are some of the animals that you are like, that's cool? Like, you don't really care about, for lack of a better
I don't have
term.
any anymore. I used to. It
Ooh,
used to be great apes, most
okay.
insects, inverts in general, fish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is impossible to spend time with people that are insanely passionate about animals and
Mm-hmm.
not also become insanely passionate about them. It is
Yeah, if
literally
they're doing
impossible.
it right.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
Some
mean,
people I think are just weird.
no, that's fair. No, that is fair.
Just
But I mean,
kidding.
no, you're not wrong. But like, I mean,
No,
like, if you would have told me before this though that like I would have been as excited to hold a blue death feigning beetle or a millipede, which I got to do recently in Topeka, as
Mhm.
I am about meeting a sloth, I would have laughed in your stupid face.
Yeah.
But when I was sitting there and I was talking to this guy, this amazing insect dude. I'm just going to phrase it that way. And it turns out that he is like the first person to ever successfully breed the blue death
Mm.
feigning beetles in human care. And he's talking about them and how exciting they are. And then he puts a millipede on my arm after that. And he's talking about how it will like dig into you a little bit, like not in a painful way, but like you'll feel how it really does like cling in a different way than any animal I've ever had on me before. Snakes, fingerarms,
Mm.
anything. And it's insane. And hearing his excitement, then you get excited, and then you meet the thing, and it's being all awesome and animally, and yeah, it's absolutely impossible to not be like, I love this. Probably the funniest one, honestly, though, until I drummed with Emily,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't give a rat's butt about elephants. It's not that I didn't think they were a cool animal. It's that they stand there. They don't do much. They wiggle their trunks around. Cool, whatever. And I don't know, for whatever reason, elephants just never really spoke to me. As a matter of fact, when I went to drum with Emily, and I've never said this, but when I went to drum with Emily, I was very much like meeting the I was gonna go, I think I was gonna go see the pandas and then drum with Emily. And I was so excited for more panda time. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And like drumming with Emily will probably be pretty neat or whatever, because it's like drums and animals, yay. Turned out to be the possibly most emotional I've ever been around an animal.
Mm-hmm.
But until that moment of connection, it used to annoy me. Elephants are one of my mom's favorite animals, and we'd go to the National Zoo together, and oh, we have to stop and look at the elephants, and I'd be like, yep, and they'd wiggle their ears and stand there, and I'd go, okay, it's time to no. No, okay,
Get
we're going to stand here
going.
longer. Now I can just stare at an elephant for like an hour with neither of us moving. I'm so in love with them. But yes, I think that's a
Mm.
big part of it is like as you meet these different animals and meet the people who are passionate about them and can share about them, it's impossible to be met about any of them. I mean, I wasn't all that excited about birds
No,
until we
you were
started
not.
hanging out. And now, like, I would die for Russell.
Me too.
I know.
Oh, well, I love that. Um, Hang on.
Take your time, eat your snack.
Can you hear me chewing on this
A
orange?
little bit, but don't worry about it. I can edit that afterwards. Don't mute though; it screws up the recording
Okay.
sometimes. So, but yeah,
Okay.
I can fix all of that. Unless you like talk through eating, which you do half the time. But
I'll try not to. Um, okay. Well, since this kind of whole experience, you've also learned a lot about training. You've been pretty well prepped, if I do say so myself, for topics in the training world and interactions with kind of like some of the big names in training. And you've gotten to be a pretty good trainer. Like, we've had a lot of really great conversations about these topics and how you've been able to apply training to your work at the aquarium and your interactions with those staff members, and just kind of like bringing some really fresh concepts into the mix. And you've been able to notice things at facilities you've gone to. And how do you think that has kind of shaped your approach to your interactions with even just your pets, or I don't know, some of the keepers that you interact with at these facilities? Are you more cognizant about animal behavior now? Do you pay a little bit more attention to, their behavior? Are you like nerding out about their training and behavior with their keepers? Do you get really excited to see their training sessions? Tell me a bit about like kind of your training journey.
Yeah, so you're right. I love it. And I totally nerd out about it. And the really good ones, the really good training people, I get very excited about. And the people who aren't that passionate about it, it's like, I'm confused. Like, I'll be like, oh my gosh, have you read this book? Or, oh, have you heard of this person? They're like, no. And I'm like, but you do this.
Does that happen often?
No, but it really annoys me when it does. Possibly my biggest pet peeve in the industry.
Yep.
And I've had people approach me. I've helped to create training plans for some sea turtles, and I've gotten to be very hands-on. I've even gotten to work like one-on-one, like on my own with sea lions and stuff when I'm out in Arizona and everything. And yeah, I love it. And I can sit and talk about it all day. Some of my favorite moments have been after training sessions that I either observe or got to participate in, and then having that powwow afterwards and talking through the good, the bad, the ugly, what we did right, what we did wrong, analyzing antecedents and all that stuff. I spent a week living with Wouter Stillard.
I sure
and
do
every
know.
night
You called me. You called me before it even happened.
I did. Every freaking night. He took me out and we talked training, and it was stunning and it was brilliant. And he's a person I need to have on the podcast, and he's offered. I need to make it happen. I adore that man.
Well, I happen to know where he is right now.
That is true. That is true. I did get a picture of you two together today.
Yes, for everyone who doesn't know, Wouter is spending some time at Southwick's, and it's so exciting.
Yes.
I don't really get to work with him that much because he's not there for the birds, but we are attending his workshop right now, and it's really cool.
Just fantastic. But yeah, so training in general, Wouter is awesome. Training is awesome. I'm very passionate about it. It's a very theoretical knowledge until I started to get to put my hands on some animals and do stuff. And I quickly learned that just because you have knowledge doesn't mean that you have skill. And there was a lot of, but it was easy to grow that way. And I think one of the most interesting things, so Zoe is an incredible trainer in general, but
yes, she is.
With dogs in particular, she's fantastic. And she has encouraged me. So we do like agility classes with our dogs and stuff. And she has encouraged me to participate. And I was like, no, like, because I tried occasionally, but like, she's just so good. And I wasn't confident. And like, it was embarrassing, honestly. And after I got back from working with sea lions for the first time out in Arizona, it was like a switch clicked in my brain, and I'm fearless now. I will do training things at the drop of a hat. I will work on stuff. I will, figure out what I'm doing wrong or what's not being communicated well to the animal, all that stuff. And it's awesome. I love it so much. I love being able to do that. I also find that I use what I've learned in training in my daily life with humans. I am a better music director because of it. I am definitely a better father because of it. I stick exclusively to positive reinforcement with Miles. I have never raised my hand to him and will certainly never do so, and rarely have raised my voice. And any time that I did, it was more out of shock. And it's only happened literally, he's almost 11. I think I've yelled at him 3 times.
Mm.
And it was because I was so damn shocked by something that came out of his mouth or something, you know. And as we head into adolescence, we'll see how that lasts. But it really has, like, and I know he trusts me and knows that he can say anything to me and tell me about anything, and we might need to talk about it. We might need, you know, I'm certainly not one of these Disney dads who's just here to have fun, but
Mhm.
I also don't need to yell, scream, or spank to have that effect. And I learned that from animals and from, you know, you can't scream at a sea lion or a bird or whatever. And I also have used that to great effect with some personal relationships to fix some behaviors that I didn't love, but didn't really think I could confront super well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it changes your mindset.
Do you think you'll ever go to Australia Zoo and meet Bindi Irwin?
I don't know. I want to go to Australia very, very badly. And I want to meet all of the cool people there that I have met and had on the podcast and that have become friends and fans. And I have invitations to go do the coolest stuff all around
Mhm.
Australia. And it is my number one dream to go and volunteer for a month with Karen Coombs at the Tree Kangaroo Rescue Center in Australia and just do tree kangaroo husbandry and just take care of those little ones. It is my ultimate dream. It would be very expensive, but I need to make it happen. That being said, I have reached out to the Australia Zoo about having either Bindi Sue or Robert or Carrie Ann or any of the Irwins on. And they're one of the few places that I only reached out to once I got kind of big, and they still were like, lol, no.
Did
But
they
that's
say
fine.
they did respond to you?
They did, and it was very positive. It was very kind. They were
Yeah.
just like, "Oh, you know, the Irwins aren't looking for that kind of publicity at this time, or something." Yeah, no, it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah.
But honestly, again, I don't. I if it was up to me, I'd almost rather have like a random zookeeper from Australia Zoo on than the Irwins. I'd love to meet them, and you
Yeah.
know, it'd be cool. And I certainly wouldn't not have them on the podcast. But like, I yeah, they're great. Then what they do is fantastic. But
You
yeah,
want to
they said no, and
you
it's
want to
okay.
talk to the boots on the grounds keepers.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. One of the worst things that's happened. I've loved it, but it's also been kind of weird. Is that as I've gotten bigger, I keep getting more people up the food chain now. I keep getting more. You know, early on, it was hard to get a zoo director on. Now
Mhm.
that's the first person that a PR person wants to throw at me,
Yeah.
or you know, the head of conservation instead of the conservationist that's been doing the work for 2 years.
Mhm.
And I like that, and it's cool, and it's given me some really fun insight, and a lot of them are really great interviews. And these aren't like famous people, so you get somebody like Sean Putney from Kansas City Zoo and Aquarium who turns into 2 full episodes and is great and is fun and is awesome. And honestly, the first episode came out before we dropped the second one comes out, or before we recorded the second one comes out tomorrow. I got so many comments from people that just loved him. So it's not like that like famous person thing. But
Yeah.
also, as I'm walking through the zoo, I'm seeing all these keepers and I'm like, oh, who are you? Or I'm meeting some of the keepers that are fans or that know me through Safe Tree Kangaroo or Safe Red Panda, and they're taking me back to meet their animals. I'm like, oh, but I want this on there too, you know?
Yeah.
I will always have a passion for the people that are just doing the thing
Yeah.
every day, taking care of the animals every day. I love when I get to meet the cool, funky people, and I love when the higher ups suddenly know my name. And you know, I hear that at the AZA mid-year, the head of PR for the AZA was telling people, Rossifari, we've been on, we love him, get on there. That's awesome, and I love that kind of thing. But I also always just want, you know, I've been keeper for 3 years and I really like giraffes. And I'm going to tell you about giraffes. Give me that podcast every day.
Yeah. And those are
Mhm.
the people who haven't done the podcast before that are sharing it and whose
Mhm.
friends are excited for them and their family's excited for them. And those are those people who are excited and
Yeah.
bringing you that passion that you are looking for. I just think about the Irwins because I ordered Bindi's new book. She wrote a children's book and it just came out a little while ago and I bought it, and Raina and I read it tonight before bedtime. And I was explaining who Steve Irwin is to Raina, and she thought it was really interesting. And then I pulled up my very favorite video ever of Steve Irwin, Which is the one where he's on his like little moped and he's going by the kookaburra exhibit and he just sees these kookaburras and he's like, oh, kookaburra fight. And he like gets off the moped and just like goes into the exhibit and breaks up this kookaburra fight. And it's just so iconic. Steve Irwin is just so iconic.
Absolutely.
And so the Irwins were fresh on my brain. Oh, geez, what else do I want to ask you?
I have to ask you something. Did you do an Australian accent when you spoke? When you did the Bindi book?
Did I speak in an Australian accent?
Yeah. Did you read it to Raina and were you like, "G'day, Ray. All right, let's do this thing."
Ray. I wanted to because there's like a blurb in the beginning where she does say like "G'day," and I'm like, did I even say that right? G'day, g'day.
You're like, "Good day,
Yeah,
Raina."
good day, mate. Huh?
Remember, Australia is pronounced Straya. Kookaburra is Kuka.
Kookaburra fight.
Kookaburra fight, yes.
Yeah, so the Irwins are fresh on my brain.
I like it.
All right, well, I don't know. I feel like I'm out of questions, but
Cool.
It's going to be one of those things where I'm going to think of other questions tonight when I go to bed, and I'm going to be upset that I didn't ask.
We'll write them down and we'll Zoom more tomorrow.
Okay, friends, it is time. Cue music.
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
All right. So I think I mentioned this in the episode where it happened, but whatever. So I was at Buttonwood Park Zoo. And I was hanging out with the red pandas. Shocking, I know. And I was about to go drum with Emily for the second time. This was the second time I went and played with Emily. And I'm standing in there and I'm interviewing Steph, who I just love, their keeper, and I'm pitching that they need to join Safe Red Panda, which I think they already planned to do, but I'm taking full credit for because they did after I did that. So yay. And feeding pandas and taking pictures of pandas and pandas. And all of a sudden, something falls on my back. And I'm like, oh, one of the pandas dropped, some food or something, like a biscuit. And then more fell on me. And they were like, well, that used to be biscuits. And it turns out that one of the pandas just happened. I was standing under a latrine spot and didn't realize it. And the panda pooped directly on me. And somewhere in this world, because they have panda webcams, there is actual video of a red panda pooping on me.
Did you get it?
No, I haven't seen it, but I know that they had it. I know. I need to ask again. But I was so happy. I was so excited. And then as we were heading over to Emily, they were like, let's wipe this off you. And I was like, it's fine. It's panda poop. It's fine. They were like, John. I was like, oh, right. Sorry. And so they wiped the panda poop off me kind of. But like that shirt needed to go into the wash. There was a mark. And so, yeah, I had a panda poop on me from the top of a tree.
Oh my God, that's incredible. Was that your first time?
Yeah.
Getting pooped on by a red panda?
Yeah, and it was a good one. I had no clue. I literally was like, oh, biscuits are falling. And
was it stinky? Was it formed? Was it pebbly? Give me a description.
It was solid enough where like it left a little bit of streakage, but it wasn't like, I'm so glad it wasn't like they get like mucus stools that are like mucus and like diarrhea together. And it wasn't that. And I'm very grateful, but it was loose enough. It was firm, but still loose enough, a well-hydrated panda that pooped well enough to still streak down my back.
Did it smell?
No, not really. I truly had no idea that it was poop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so when your guests are telling their poop stories, I'm going to need you to go into more detail asking about like these important questions, such that did it smell? If it ended up in your mouth, how did it taste?
Penguin poop tasted really disgusting. I will say that. Yeah, that was a bad choice.
Okay, we just need more details.
That's fair. That's fair. Maybe we'll just make the whole episode poop stories from now on.
That's a really good idea. I like that.
Poop story.
Okay, perfect. Well, this has been so much fun. I'm so honored to have been at least one of the people that gets to ask you questions. And I hope you'll bring me back to help you host another episode again sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And if you're not sick of me yet, it's now time to let Miles ask me a couple of questions. So what's your first question, buddy?
My first question is about how much stuff do you get sent to you? Like information.
Like Zoo News type stuff?
Yes.
So much. I love it. I don't want to, anybody listening to this, I appreciate all of the stuff that you send, and I don't want you to stop. But there are days that I get over 100 things sent to me, like single days.
Yeah.
And it's a lot sometimes. And if you see that I haven't looked at your messages in a couple of days, it might just be that you got buried under 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 other messages, and I didn't have the time that day. I love it, and I think it's wonderful, and it makes me feel very special. But yeah, people send me lots of stuff, which is great because then I don't have to do any of my own research for Zoo News, but lots of stuff.
Yep, it's hard doing your own research, I know.
Smart Alec. What else you got?
What was your favorite season of Rossifari?
That's a great question. So I'm going to cheat because, as you know, on this podcast, we don't ever say there's one favorite. We don't know what that word means. I have two favorites. My first answer is the first season because I was truly learning all of this stuff. I didn't know what the AZA was, what an SSP was. I mean, I probably knew some of that, but not to the extent that I do now. And even hearing words like shifting and stuff, these are just things that I didn't know. I didn't know what training was. And it was really cool learning all of that. And I also met so many of the people who are, 5 years later, still some really, really great friends from that. That's when I met Colleen. That's when I met Danny and Jake and all of these wonderful humans. And that's really cool. My second answer would be this most recent season, the 5th season, just because as the podcast has taken off and as I've made a bigger name for myself, so many of the things that I've wanted to do and to bring to people that I wasn't able to for whatever reason, I have now been able to. Having those numbers and everything makes a huge difference. And so it's been really cool to see that growth and also to just make more connections between facilities and keepers and help animals and stuff like that.
Next question. What facility do you think you've had on the podcast the most?
It's no secret that I've had the Greensboro Science Center on a lot, although it's been over a year since I've been there and it's breaking my heart and I miss the whole team and the pandas and the binturongs and all the things. But Greensboro became a very special place to me when they had bintlets and panda cubs at the same time. And as I got to know the people there, it became even more special because there are amazing people there that I built really great relationships with. And as those baby animals were growing up, I was going like once a month. And then I had this incident. Oh, dogs are barking. I had this incident and I don't remember if I talked about it in public or not, but I will now, where I was going to be doing interviews in Australia and just because of logistical issues, they fell through and I suddenly found myself missing. Like I was almost out of episodes and I was like, eek, panic. And so I reached out to Becca, who I love dearly and has become such a great friend at Greensboro. And I asked if she could get me in for an interview or two to basically save my butt. And she lined up 4 interviews in one day for me. And that really helped me through what was the first time I really had like a kind of scary, tough moment with the podcast. So yay, Becca. All right, so there you have it, folks. It was me. Yay. We'll be back on Friday with a new Zoo News episode. And of course, we'll be back on Tuesday with one of our regular interview episodes where I'm on the other side of the mic. That's not really accurate, but you know what I mean. Mics, we all have mics. They point at our faces. Anyway, and so that'll be good and normal, and we'll be right back to our fun, loving, awesome, goofy Rossifari stuff. Before I go, I want to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Shank, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, and Kevin Williams. And don't forget, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.